Imagine this scenario. You got some bad dudes after you. Think like a hungry Galactus teamed up with Darkseid, teamed up with Darth Sidious, throw in Chuck Norris and John Wick, who is convinced in this scenario that you just killed his dog. Bottom line, you're in trouble. And this is the scenario I'm going to look at today as I attempt to survive. Now you might say, good luck, you're dead. But wait, all is not lost. I am allowed to build a team of 5 Jedi as my protectors. To build this perfect team, I'm first going to tier rank Jedi by overall fighting strength. From there, I'm going to end this video by building the perfect team to fight off my imaginary super bad guy team and survive. And it's go time. What is up, everybody? My name is Matt, often called Big Nerdy. Together we are the NWO, the Nerd World Order, and this is Nerdzoic. Hey look, things look different here at Nerdzoic, kind of. That's because we're in the live studio, because look over here, computer, and I'm working on the computer to build this tier list, so we'll go back to the totally not fake brick wall set next time. Now before we do this tier ranking, let me just state that this is just a handful of known Jedi of the hundreds that fictionally exist. It's important to note that tiers are my opinion, man, but they're probably accurate. As far as our tiers go, the highest will be God tier, followed by A, B, C, and F tier. The tiers are only part of the story here, because I'm building a team, and everybody knows if you put the wrong people together, it ain't gonna work very well. So we get a bunch of super powerful people, you're gonna end up with a case of too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and all of a sudden John Wick's gonna kill me. With that in mind, I need to create the perfect team of 5 Jedi with 1 leader. To make this slightly more difficult, I am setting the rule that I can only have a grand total of 2 God tier and 1 A tier. Brace yourself for some name butchering, it's kind of my gimmick at this point. We're gonna start off with Pancrail, who was a Jedi who fought in the Clone Wars era, who committed treason trying to make himself favorable to Count Dooku. The coup. Whatever. He's considered a pretty powerful Force user, and he's actually the same species as Dexter Jettster, your favorite space diner owner, meaning that he has extra arms and dexterity, I guess, which allows him to use 2 double-bladed lightsabers at the same time, because God forbid he just used 4 normal lightsabers, that would make General Grievous file a trademark claim. He is ultimately killed by the clone codenamed Dogma, and for that reason alone, I can't put him above C tier. Next up, we got the man, the myth, the legend, Luke Skywalker, and we're looking at canon Luke Skywalker here. So this is the Luke we all know and love that saved the galaxy by helping his father, Anakin Skywalker, fulfill his destiny. Now, in current continuity, he did grow incredibly powerful after Return of the Jedi. We saw him kick some Death Trooper butt in The Mandalorian, we saw him drink raw blue milk and not puke, and we saw him fight Kylo Ren to a draw using a force projection from the other side of the galaxy. So yeah, he is pretty strong. I mean, the only thing really keeping canon Luke from going into God tier is the fact that he became a little punk and was like, things didn't go well, so I'm gonna hide and not be a Jedi. But I can't keep him out of A tier, so A tier. Next, we're gonna look at Luke Skywalker again. Don't worry, this is Legends Luke Skywalker. So before the prequels, there was a 16-year drought in live-action Star Wars content. Between the prequels and Disney, there was another 10-year period of nothing on the screen. All of that period was filled in with various books and comic books. When the mouse took over, they took anything that wasn't already live-action content and turned that into like an alternate universe that they called Legends. And a big part of Legends was depowering Luke Skywalker. Let me give you some examples here. Legends Luke Skywalker used the Force to manipulate a black hole. He could communicate across the galaxy regularly. He recreates an entire ship using a Force projection. He can move at hypersonic speeds like he's the Jedi Flash. He can remove memories like he's Red Reddington. And he even defeated an entire fleet in battle using only the Force. The creator George says he is the most powerful Jedi who ever lived. This is the very personification of God tier. Next up, we got Cal Kestis from the Jedi Fallen Order video games and the upcoming Jedi Survivor games. He is a young Jedi who survives Order 66 and gets a hodgepodge of training from ex-Jedi and artifacts along the years afterwards. As far as fighting ability, who knows? We only see him in a video game, but he's got all the Force powers we know and love: push, pull, speed, slow, jump, saber throw. He even defeats a couple Inquisitors and briefly redeems one of them. Here's the thing though, Inquisitors aren't really Sith. Compared to Vader, they're pieces of crap. In fact, Vader eats pieces of crap like them for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
While he has above average raw force skills, he is far below average as a warrior due to his crappy training, and because of that, we gotta put him in F tier, and I'm sorry, Cal. Next up, we have Barriss Offee, whose name I surely butchered. She's known from the prequel era, and she studied under Luminara Unduli, whose name I also butchered, and together they fought in the Battle of Geonosis. Offee later became radicalized and bombed the Jedi Temple, and then tried to frame Ahsoka for it. Like many Jedi, she was killed in Order 66. She had some serious skills in telekinesis, so she had a pretty enhanced force push in battle, and she was also skilled in fighting with 2 lightsabers, so she had some power to her. But the fact that she was radicalized tells me that her mental strength just isn't there, and for that, she's gonna have to go to B tier. Next up, we got Mace Windu, the Jedi Master on the High Council known from his prequel and Clone Wars time. Mace is able to tap into the dark side without letting it take control of him while he's fighting, which makes him a pretty superior saber wielder. I mean, let's face facts, he essentially had Palpatine beat before Anakin came in and cut off his arm and killed him. Or did he? No ifs, ands, or buts, Mace Windu is an A tier. Next up, we got Yoda, who's probably like most people's favorite Jedi. He's a Jedi Master on the High Council. He's in pretty much the entire saga. He has amazing saber wielding skills from his 9 centuries of practice. He has the ability to sense death, he can deflect force lightning, and he even became a force ghost. And it seems like they use his midichlorian count to judge where others are, as we saw with Anakin, so yeah, even the Jedi respect him as the GOAT. So yeah, with Yoda, we're going God tier. Next up, we got Coleman Trevor, who is the dinosaur-looking Jedi you might recognize from the Battle of Geonosis. He did manage to nearly kill Count Dooku on Geonosis before being killed by Jango Fett, so it's kind of impressive that he almost killed Dooku, whatever, but Jango Fett killed him. He's not a Jedi, so yeah, I gotta kind of take him down there. Then you take into account this. He is said to be the master of empathy, and his highest skill was meditation. That is not gonna help me against Galactus and John Wick. I'm sorry, those are important things, but they are not important to fighting, so you're going to F tier. Next up, we got Kaden Jarrus, whose name I probably said wrong. You might better know him by his original name, Caleb Dune. After he survived Order 66, was actually Hunter from the Bad Batch that let him get away. He later trained his own apprentice while he himself was not being fully trained, which just sounds like a recipe for disaster. He did end up sacrificing himself while holding an explosion with the Force so his friends could escape, so he at least redeemed himself from any mistakes he made. He is definitely strong in the Force, but he is truly no Jedi. C tier. Next up is Ki-Adi-Mundi, who is the cone-headed member of the Jedi Council during the prequel era. He is supposedly a lightsaber expert with really good reflexes, and his species has a binary brain, which is supposed to make him smart. That said, he didn't listen to Qui-Gon about the Sith attack. He's like, nah, the Sith been gone for a millennium, they don't matter, man. And he thought Dooku would never turn to the dark side, which makes him a bit naive. He also manages to get mowed down by some clones, and he didn't see that coming, so what kind of Jedi are you? I'm gonna go B tier, because he seems like a pompous know-it-all. Next up, we got Ben Solo. Now, this one might be a bit controversial where I'm going to put him, but here's the thing. He was able to wipe out all of Luke's students. He wiped out all the Knights of Ren, all by himself. He's able to stop a blaster bolt midair, and he's able to paralyze his enemies, so he is clearly very skilled. He was also able to trick Snoke into thinking he would follow his orders, but then cuts him in half in a very weird scene. And possibly the most important point to make is that he's got that mighty Skywalker blood, so I can't see any reason to put him in anything but A tier. Next up, we got Anakin Skywalker, and this is before the fall, before Darth Vader. Think about Anakin Skywalker like the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, where he's landing a ship with the Force. So what do we got here as far as abilities go? We got super strong telekinesis, great lightsaber skills. We got the fact that he's able to see into the future even though he interprets it wrong, and he's got a higher midichlorian count than Master Yoda. I'm not sure if it's because of the midichlorians, but he's also extremely whiny. I should be on the council. Maybe it's hereditary. I want to go to Tachi Station and pick up some power converters with my friends. Of course he's going to God tier though. Next up, we got Jocasta Nu, who you might not recognize just on the name. She was the chief librarian on Coruscant who was in charge of the Jedi Council library, so she was also a Jedi. She was what you might call a capable Jedi, but Dooku was able to mess with the archives, and Cad Bane was able to steal a holocron out from under her watch, so she wasn't that capable. She did survive Order 66, but because she was actually quite feared by Emperor Palpatine, Vader was made to go hunt her down very quickly. Why was she feared, Big Nerdy? Very simple. It certainly wasn't for her fighting skill. She was incredibly knowledgeable, and if the Jedi were ever to be able to make a comeback, her knowledge would be enough to train legions of new Jedi. So she had to go, and she's not useful to me, so she's going into F tier. Next up we have Ahsoka Tano, who was Anakin's apprentice during the clone era. She holds her own quite well in many duels as a Padawan against people like Darth Maul, 𝐒𝐸𝐴𝐿 Ventress, General Grievous, etc. She's a very gifted Jedi with combat-based force abilities such as being able to be a great pilot, and she's also good at wielding 2 lightsabers. All that said, I think she gets overrated a lot. I think many people will be like, oh god, or A tier for Ahsoka, and I'm sorry, I don't think so. I think she gets overrated because of her popularity, and she is very charismatic, I'm not gonna lie. But that said, B tier. Next up we have Yaddle, who was a Jedi on the High Council in episode 1, who is only one of 3 of whatever species they are, along with Yoda and Grogu. We didn't know much about her until recently in the recently released Tales of the Jedi, where she took on Count Dooku by herself, but ultimately failed. Yaddle is known to be skilled in ancient Jedi practices that allow her to slow down opponents' bodily functions, which in my mind, I just imagine her fighting somebody and causing them to have extreme constipation, or maybe they start puking. I don't know. I gotta go with F tier though, even though she held her own in a fight against Dooku for a while, so she almost moves into that C tier, but nah, she's F tier. Next up we have Count Dooku, who is a former Jedi Master who was trained by Yoda, and he was the master of a young apprentice you might know as Qui-Gon Jinn. He was proficient in telekinesis and a master saber wielder. He even made his own lightsaber design to give him a leg up based on his fighting style. It had a curved hilt, it was pretty cool. I'm sure it wasn't designed at all for toy sales. He developed Force lightning skills later as Darth Tyrannus, but he was technically a Sith, but I don't think he was ever fully dark. He was pretty powerful, he was very pragmatic, I guess is the word. So yeah, I like Count Dooku, but I can't go above B tier. Next up, Shaak Ti, known from the prequel era, and she was featured heavily in the Force Unleashed video game. She is one of the last members of the Jedi High Council before the Purge, and she is a skilled healer in the Force with the ability to heal herself or others, which might come in handy in my John Wick Galactus battle, but I'm not doing it, most likely, so I just don't see it that powerful. C tier. Next up is Galen Marek. Oh ho ho, now we're talking some raw power here. This is Vader's secret apprentice from the Force Unleashed video games. It is said that he is what Luke would have been if he was trained by Vader. He had a Force explosion technique ability that allowed him to completely disintegrate his opponents just with the Force. At one point he pulls a Star Destroyer out of the sky. Another point he takes an AT-AT and crunches it up like it's made of tin. Like, this guy is, again, the personification of God tier. Next up, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We all know who he is. He's a skilled saber wielder. He's great with the Force jumps and the Force dash, as we saw in the Phantom Menace. And he eventually becomes a Jedi Master, and he beats Anakin even. Twice. That said, I'm gonna say he's B tier, and I know you're all gonna yell at me for this and say he's A tier, but listen, I kind of feel like he was in a lot of ways lucky.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
Like, he was in the right place at the right time. Like, his fighting style made him more likely to defeat General Grievous than others. He's good, he's just not great. Plus, he allows Darth Vader to live twice. I don't need that kind of decision making. Next we have Kyle Katarn, and oh, this is a blast from the past from the Star Wars Legends era. Katarn starts off as an Imperial trooper, but later becomes a rebel with latent Force abilities that lead him to eventually become a Jedi. He learns a lot of the Jedi arts on his own through hologram message left by his father, who was a Jedi, and he even got some studying under Luke Skywalker and becomes one of the Jedi Masters in his new academy in the Legends timeline. All that said, his training was again kind of hodgepodge. It wasn't like from a child. He didn't get official training, and he's not known to have like extreme Force skills like a Luke Skywalker. For that reason, I'm gonna put him in C tier. Next up we have Qui-Gon Jinn, who is Obi-Wan's master and Dooku's apprentice. Qui-Gon was like that questionably dirty cop on the payroll who plays by his own set of rules. He didn't always see eye to eye with the Jedi Council, and he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He had a huge connection with the living Force, and I always viewed him as very pragmatic. He looked at things logically and big picture. I'd like to think he's like me as a Jedi. He was also the first of his generation, at least, to become a Jedi Force ghost. That said, he did lose to Darth Maul in singles combat, so I don't exactly think he is all that great as a fighter, so we're going to put him in B tier. Next we have Plo Koon, who was a master on the High Council and was known to be able to survive in space and was a master of telekinesis. He also used a forbidden Force technique called electric judgment, but some say it was too similar to Force lightning. Also sounds like something Judge Dredd would do. I'm gonna go with B tier here. The last Jedi we're gonna look at is Revan, formerly Darth Revan, known from the Knights of the Old Republic video games and books. He is a Sith gone good, so he's like the opposite of Walter White. Kind of like Saul Goodman. Yes, I am watching Better Call Saul as I film this. He can Force heal, he can resist poisons, and his Force lightning and Force storm are pretty powerful. Also, much like Yoda, he can absorb energy and redirect it back at his enemies. I'm gonna put him in A tier, even though I think it's very close to God tier. Alright, picking my team. To remind you, I get 5 choices. 1 has to be designated as leader, only 1 can be A tier, and 2 can be God tier. So we're going to start off with my leader, and we're going to pick someone right out of that God tier, and it's of course going to be Yoda. Why did I pick Yoda? Well, he's going to have the respect of the others on his team. They'll listen to him because he's the oldest, obviously. The biggest concern here is his smugness that allowed him and the other Jedi to be clouded and not see the Sith return underneath their nose. I'm going to need someone to balance that. That's what we call foreshadowing. My theory, though, is that maybe Yoda could mind trick Galactus to go eat somebody else, and he can just kind of solo Galactus. At least that's what I'm hoping. I'm going to pick my second God tier pick here, and that's going to be Legends Luke Skywalker. He is going to be the second member of my team and my final God tier pick. He is the powerhouse of the team. I'm not counting on him for strategy, logistics, morale. He's just on this team for his pure strength. So with the God tier picks done, why did I choose who I chose? Revan, he's supposed to be A tier, so that's a fail on me. First of all, I didn't choose Anakin because he's too susceptible to manipulation, as we have seen. He would end up thinking that he was a Chuck Norris, as if it's a status and not a person. He would get confused, start whining, and go off and kill some sand people. Can't have that on this team. Next up is Starkiller. Yes, incredible raw power, sure. But is he a team player? How will he impact the others? Hard to say. With both my God tier picks done, let's look at my A tier pick, and that is none other than Mace Windu. He adds another level of badass to this team, and I think that he can neutralize John Wick, so that is huge. While looking at others from this tier, I did consider Obi-Wan, which I thought I put him in B tier, but he's an A tier apparently. I don't know, I'm losing my mind. But listen, he's got a lot of wisdom, but we don't need him that bad. I got other ideas for wisdom. And I can't have canon Luke with Legends Luke, so that wouldn't make any sense. I didn't want to put him on there. Legends Luke would get confused and think that canon Luke is a clone and end up killing him. Ben Solo, he's a punk and a kinslayer. I don't need him on my team. And Revan, I heavily considered, but I never saw him deal with snakes on a plane. So Mace Windu gets the edge here because he can deal with snakes on a plane. My next pick is from the B tier, and that is none other than Qui-Gon Jinn.
Took you long enough.
And this is the key to my team, folks. He is the one who's going to keep everybody mentally grounded. He adds heart and common sense without dragging down fighting skill too much. He will keep Yoda in check so that Yoda's not like, oh, there's nothing wrong here. Galactus ain't gonna hurt nobody. Gotta have him. And my last pick, give me Count Dooku. This might surprise people, but if Qui-Gon is alive and he's helping keep Yoda from being a pompous butt, Dooku would not go dark, and he would bring a level of combat to counteract Chuck Norris like it's nothing. That's my team. What would you have done and why? I'm really curious to see. Tell me your 5. If you're watching this, you're probably a Star Wars nerd. Most Star Wars nerds tend to be collectors, and in this video here, I talk about my top 10 Star Wars holy grails, whether they're just toys or other collectibles. Check them out here. And remember, you gotta get old, but you don't have to grow up. Just be cool and stay nerdy. Later.